What is up, Gamecock Nation? Welcome into the What to Expect pregame show. Like we've been doing for the past couple of weeks, where we kind of combine two shows into one, where we talk about what you can kind of expect from this Kentucky team, and then kind of break down everything else in terms of score predictions, talking ball, all that good stuff. But before we get started, first and foremost, very first game that I got to witness live in person covering the South Carolina Gamecocks women's basketball team with Dawn Staley. First off, by the way, the entrance alone, announcing the starting lineups, fire. And then watching them play, and I don't think it even did it justice, because I think when you have like a top ranked matchup, it's probably even better. The atmosphere is absolutely insane. Absolutely love watching them. Don Staley is probably one of the most humble human beings, and genuine, just from hearing her talk. I never asked questions. And joked around on X about just not being worthy enough to ask her a question. But I kind of always want to see how coaches answer questions first before I start and go asking quote unquote stupid questions. But loved every bit of genuine attitude that she had towards answering those questions, like about the commitment of Joyce, and the play of her athletes. Just loved everything about it. So shout out to the women's basketball team, dominating win, very fun. I can now say I'm 1-0 when I attend basketball games, or in South Carolina. Sorry, I had nothing to do with it. But anyway, you are also here to talk about football. So let's kind of get into it real quick. If you've joined us from X, you saw that we're going to talk score predictions. We're going to talk the defense finally making some changes. We're going to talk keys to success. And to start it off with, what can you expect from Kentucky? First and foremost, quite obviously, they are a run to pass team. Now, Joseph, what do you mean by run to pass? Run to pass team is simply they can have success in the passing game if they are forcing you to come in and put 7, sometimes 8 in the box to stop the run. Now, typically, if they can do that, the play action is a very, very powerful aspect of their game. Without it, it can tend to lack efficiency on their offense. If you've looked and you've seen, we've posted some articles about this. 3 of their away games in the SEC, at Mississippi State, at Vanderbilt, and at Georgia. Not in that order, but that's where they went. Scored 24 against Mississippi State, scored 13 against Georgia, and they scored 45 against Vanderbilt. 82 points on the road. Now you look at that, you're like, hey, what do you mean they aren't efficient on the road? 21 of those points came from defensive interceptions. Now, that is not to sit here and say that they can't be good this weekend, but when you've slowed down the run, which for the most part, Mississippi State, I'll have to go back and look at the stats, but Georgia was. When you can slow down their run, it makes that team a little bit one dimensional. And we all know if you can make a team one dimensional, a whole lot easier to attack and defend that. So the very first thing you have to do is stop the run. You can expect them to run the ball with Ray Davis, very big physical back. Now, you typically, at least in my opinion, when I hear a Kentucky team, it's more of their run game is in between the tackles, and then good luck. They're just going to just kind of run you over the whole entire game and kind of wear you down. Not this year. This year, a lot of their runs have been to the outside, either to the left or the right tackle, and allowing Ray Davis to have the cutback lane if it is there. A lot of the times, they're going to go out there. So in the running game, you have to be ready to set the edge. If you're not going to set the edge, it'll be a long day. But even if you're able to set the edge and contain that edge and force Ray Davis back in, you cannot over pursue if you are the inside, if you have inside leverage, if that makes sense. You, what you have to do your job. I think they emphasized this weekend. I believe Shane Beamer did in some press conferences, or Clayton White, I can't remember. Do your job. Don't worry about what this guy's job is, because it's irrelevant if you do his job and then don't do yours. So do your job is the key thing here, right? So you can expect that. They're going to have the play action. Now, defensively for Kentucky, quite simple. They are physical on the defensive line. They've got some physical linebackers, and they are going to make you one dimensional. Here's the thing about that, and why I do think, and while I don't have a score prediction yet, we're going to have to still think of something before now and the end of this 20-ish minutes show. Shane Beamer, Dow Loggins, and Spencer Rattler are good when we're passing the ball. We are. When they are passing the ball. Spencer Rattler is a heck of a quarterback at home. Does tremendous numbers at home. This is a Kentucky secondary that is not the best. So, very curious to see how they do that. But they're physical, and they don't only just get after you in the run game, they can get after you on that defensive line and the pass game. The reason why it's so difficult for some teams is they have what's called a zero technique. If you don't know what that is, it's a traditional nose tackle. The guy is lined up directly on top of the center. Now, typically, that doesn't particularly matter. Well, in today's game, when you're doing a whole lot of 3-4 odd fronts or you're doing more 4-2-5s, you don't necessarily have anybody over the center. So in this game, for the first time, Nick is going to be forced to take care of the ball when he's snapping. We have to have good, efficient snaps, but we also got to get our hands up quick because one of three things are going to happen. He's either going to bully us off the line and run a straight back, which we're going to have to stand be tall, or he's going to attack either gap. Whichever one he does, Nick has to be on his A game. Now, how does Clayton White and staff kind of help him out, if any? That's a good question. Because if you have, I'm assuming Moore or Ball in to help him from the guard position, you are going to leave your tackles on the outside kind of on an island where number 0, I think it's Dion Walker is his name. Last thing you want is a freshman. And Tree Babalade has done extremely well this year, but the last thing you want as a freshman is that big boy, one-on-one. So they can create matchup nightmares unless they think Nick can just hold up on his own. So that's going to be something to watch. And so that's kind of what you can expect from Kentucky. A run game from the outside and defense, their front, they're big, they're physical. You might have to have a quick passing scheme game. Not necessarily just passing, the extensions of the run. In today's college football, you don't always have to just run the ball off to the back in a stretch zone type play. The extensions of the run, quick little tear motion or orbit motions, and then they go off to that, throw a screen. Get the running backs involved. Get Mario Anderson involved in the passing game. One of my keys to success is getting Mario, or one of my X factors is Mario Anderson in the passing game. So that's kind of what you can expect for Kentucky. So let's talk about South Carolina, what you're actually kind of here for. Keys to success. Posted it earlier today over on Gamecocks Digest. Number 1, set the edge. Just talked about it. If you're not able to set the edge, it'll be a long day. You're going to allow Kentucky to do what they do best. Probably not a good idea to let that happen. The second key, quite simply, play to your strengths. You are a passing first offense. That is not telling you that Mario Anderson is not adequate enough to run the ball, because he's beyond that. Your offensive line is slowly getting there, but still is not consistently creating that movement up front. So do what you're good at. Let Spencer Rattler throw the ball against the secondary that isn't necessarily their strong suit of that defense. It's their front. So get it out quick. Do what you do best. Don't force being balanced. Kind of like that Jacksonville State game kind of felt forced in terms of play calling. And then thirdly, win the turnover battle. We talked about it earlier. Kentucky has forced 3 turnovers on the road, 21 of their 82 points. I don't know math very well. That's a decently high percentage, if I'm not mistaken. So the key for me when you're looking at these turnovers is one, Spencer take care of the ball, which for the most part at home Spencer Rattler does, but defense has to continue to force these turnovers that they've been able to create the past couple of weeks. And without them, yeah, you might have an extreme close game that you might not want as a fan for health reasons or for any reason for that matter. But you need to force turnovers. I do believe if South Carolina sets the edge, if they do what they do best and pass, and if that means passing the ball 35 to 45 times, that means passing the ball 45, 35 times. And then going and letting Xavier Leggett have success, Joshua Simon have success, go out there and get a guy like Harbor going, go out there and get a guy like Russell going, Omega Blake going. You have the talent. Let Braswell get out in the open as well. Amari and Brown as well. You have the talent. You have the people with the ability to make people miss. Let them do it. And if that, like I said, if that takes 45, throw the ball 45 times a game, you're only running at 15, so be it. Do what you're good at. If you do those two things, and if you can force 2 turnovers as a defense, I think Carolina wins the game. Now, I'm stuck between 2 scores. I have, I'm, if Kentucky wins this game, it's going to be a defensive, like, ugh, just one of those games where nobody can get it going. Nobody's really efficient, but Kentucky puts this 16 play drive out on the field and kind of just ends it, kind of thing. And they win like a 24-14 vibe. That's how I see Kentucky win. If South Carolina wins, I think it's going to be one of those offensive defense gets a couple of stops here and there, but for the most part, it's going to be like a high scoring kind of game, like a 38-31 style game. So I'm in between that right now. And I'm not going to cop out. I promise you I'm going to pick a winner. But while I'm still thinking about that, because I just don't know what I want to go with right now, let's talk about this. The defense. It was the other thing that we're going to get to, and then we'll talk. So they're kind of moving away from that 4-2-5 and going back to like a tradition. I said going back, doing what they did in the first quarter of Texas A&M and what they did for the priority majority of the Vanderbilt game was they had that 3 down front, essentially playing a 3-3-5. Looks like a 3-4 in my opinion sometimes, but it is a 3-3-5. Best thing that could have happened to him, in my opinion, because it allows you to have one, you can put the linebackers in better positions. Like guys like Bam Scott Martin played tremendous out there on the outside. You allowed Stone Blanton to kind of not necessarily play right there in the middle where he's asked to run sideline to sideline. He's been put on the edge a little bit to help edge contain, and then Debo Williams being allowed to be that sideline to sideline guy from what I watched on the film against Vanderbilt. It fits them perfectly. Loved every single thing about it. And then you still can have Kilgore, you still can have Eminwari, and you can have DQ all on the field. You can play some cover 3. You can let Nick Eminwari help in the box. There's the sky's the limit. For me, this defense, the 3-3-5, fits what your talent or your team talent, what they are good at, fits them perfectly this year. Is it too little too late? Don't know. We'll find out. But I think it's perfect. And I hope they stay in it. And I hope they don't go back to a 4-2-5. Not that you can't have success in the 4-2-5. I don't think you have the right fits for that quite yet. You need a lot of depth, especially on the defensive line if you're going to go 4-2-5. So let's let guys like, and I can't remember his name, the guy that lined up at D tackle. But you let Sanders, you let Tonka Hemingway kind of line up in the edge right there in the gaps between the tackles and the guards. Let them go to work. And then you just hope you get a big guy right there in the center, over in the center, if you want to play a zero tech. I'm not sure if they're going to play it that way or not. But just play to their strengths. And I think this is that. I think the 3-3-5 plays to your team's strengths. So I'm very interested to see how that goes. But you've heard it all. You've heard the keys to success. You've heard what to expect. So now it's time. Well, Joseph, what's the score prediction going to be? I'm going to go 31-27, South Carolina. And I don't feel confident in that. I don't. Not that I don't have confidence in South Carolina. I do. I am very curious, one, to see how quickly South Carolina can come out. If Carolina can come out and start off hot, I feel a whole lot more comfortable with that 31-27. If they start off slow, Kentucky's brand of football is purely just we're going to wear you out for 4 quarters. And if you let us, we're going to. So if you allow Kentucky to kind of just stay in that we're going to pound the rock, it could be a long day. So I really need to see the defense and the offense come out fast and be efficient. That's what I'm worried about. What kind of defense do we see? Do we see Vanderbilt defense? Do we see the Florida defense? So that's what I'm curious to see. The offense, I'm not necessarily worried about in terms of the you kind of know what they are at this point. Play calling, I'm expecting to be pretty daggone good. Outside of that's kind of where I'm at. I don't feel comfortable either way. I can see either team winning this game. South Carolina has more to play for. Kentucky's already bowl eligible. They don't really have anything to play for other than just they beat South Carolina. So there's a lot of things that kind of leave this open for determination, and you can kind of just make your own guess. And I would kind of agree with it, unless you're going blowout city. I just don't think this is a blowout game. Hope I'm wrong, and I hope it's in favor of the Gamecocks. But that's kind of where we're at. Thank you for being here. Once again, I am excited to watch Williams-Brice Stadium at night. We will see y'all tomorrow, 7:30. Be there and be loud. See you Sunday.